Hello, this is Hannah with Hannah Crafted Gifts, and today I have a hopefully quick tutorial for you for a card I am doing with a couple of my Demonstrator friends, my upline Bethany and my downline and partner Renee, who you've seen me do tutorials with before, for our virtual event at the end of the month of April. So this is to show you all who can't be there, or you who can and may have technical difficulties the day of, since this is the first time, I know at least for us as demonstrators, that we're doing this, so probably the first time for many of you customers as well. So you'll have this to watch in case you can't be there, or again, it doesn't work out well on the day of. So this is a card to go along with the Hive Box. You've seen on my blog the original concept for this design that I came up with during Celebration using this Golden Honey DSP that was one of the freebies this year. Now that that's gone, I did a tutorial with Renee that you may have seen where we made this version, which you can make anytime because it just uses the cardstock, which is always available, and the honeybee stamp set. I had to remind myself the name of. That's available at least through the current mini catalog, so till June. And that's what this virtual event is completely based on. This is a bee-themed class, so all the projects are themed as such. So to go with that little beehive box you might give as a gift, we came up with this little card idea using the best dressed note cards and envelopes. These are 3x3, so just wanted to show you what those are called. And there's 3 colors, so you get a petal pink envelope, which I think might be my favorite. I love the flowers on there, and the inside of each envelope has a different design. So this one has the stripes, and this was my first design for the cards. You can see we stamp all over with the flowers, which we'll be doing in a minute, and then stamp the sentiment on vellum, so it kind of bouquets the background a little bit, and you get wishing you sunshine and happiness. And then this big bee fits perfectly under there. I actually had it facing the other way up, but when I showed my husband, he noticed that it would actually fit better upside down. So I liked it that way. But you can see these cards have this great wash, this watercolor wash in petal pink. That was already part of the card before we even went ahead and made it our own. So that's the petal pink card. You also get a purple posy card with stripes on the outside, dots on the inside. And this version I made a little different. I put just the small bee. That was actually, maybe I misspoke earlier, this was my original design. The other one's just my favorite that I developed as I was playing around. And I don't know if you could see on the last one, but I did a coloring technique with the watercolor pencils and blender pen where I created like an ombre. So on this one I used the pumpkin pie, the real red, and the rich raspberry, and I kind of fade from one up into the other. It's a little easier to tell in person. And then on this one, it stands out a little more because the colors are a little more different. I used, because this has the purple posy wash on the background, let's see if you can see that under there. No, it's hard to see with the light, isn't it? It's real pale. But I used rich raspberry, the Pacific Point, and Bermuda Bay. Had to double check that. So you get kind of a rainbow ombre effect on those. So tonight, you might be able to tell it's night because, like I said, the light. I'm going to make the Daffodil Delight card with you. So I'm going to pull my pieces out of the envelope. This one has dots on the outside, flowers on the inside, and it's Daffodil Delight, which matches our beehive box. So I'm going to go ahead and tilt this down and we'll get started. Okay, so you can see here's the card base. This one's going to show up real well. You can see that watercolor wash already on there in the Daffodil Delight. Don't fold your card yet, or if you already did, that's okay, but it is easier if you work with it stamping open. I've already gone ahead and stamped my vellum with that wishing you sunshine and happiness. I did want to give you a tip on this though. The vellum is just big enough. So the card is 3x3, the vellum is 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. So you get that 1/8 border. And so when you go to stamp, and I use the basic black archival ink, if you're using Memento or StazOn, either should work. But just be really careful. In fact, you might not want to stamp on a white mat. You might want to pull it off, or if you're using grid paper, that can help you with the lines on that. But just make sure you are just inside that vellum when you stamp. It'll look closer than it is because, of course, the words are a little in from the edge of the stamp, but it will be close. So just know that. Also, if you haven't used vellum often in the past, it does smudge easily. So as soon as you stamp it, go ahead and set it aside. Don't touch it and let it dry for a little while, regardless of the type of ink you're using. If you don't want to risk stamping on your vellum, the day of the event I'm going to show you an alternative design that still uses the vellum, so you still get that bouquet effect, but you don't have to stamp the sentiment here. You can stamp it on the inside. Or if you do stamp it here and it does smudge or doesn't show fully, you can get rid of the vellum and just go ahead with the stamped images we're going to create. Alright, so I'm going to set that aside for now, and then I've also stamped and fussy cut 2 of the little bees. You can choose to do the one big bee, again that looks like this, or you can do the one little bee, again that looks like this, or you can do the 2, which is what I'm going to do tonight. If you do the 2, I just went ahead and cut a dimensional in half because these are small enough that is fine. Let me try to get that to catch the light so you can see. Alright, so I'm going to set those aside too, and we're going to get stamping. So I'm going to grab my 2 flower stamps on blocks. There's one that's just a little bigger than the other, but they could probably both fit on a B block if that's what you have. I put mine on a C, a D would be fine, that's what this one was. And by the way, the little B I had on an A block, but again, everything fits on the D if that's all you're working with. And I've got my black ink pad. Let's go ahead and get your black ink out. I think that's all we need for now. One thing I did just remember with the bees I wanted to tell you, I did use the bone folder, so you can see maybe that they're slightly curled. Just to give them a little bit more dimension. And so you could use a bone folder, you could use a scoring tool, you could use a plastic knife with the non-serrated side, you could even just use your fingers to kind of bend. But I just kind of gently curled the edges of the paper like that. So just wanted to show you that real quick. Alright, now we're going to get stamping. So what I'm going to do with my mat here is I'm actually going to fold this over. You can see it's a paper pumpkin flyer from March. So I'm going to fold this over just to the fold of the card. It's already scored for me. Okay. And that is going to protect the back side of the card from getting my flowers on it, because the flowers are going to go off of just the card front. I think that gives a good look. Alright, so first I'm going to take either of the flowers, doesn't matter, they face opposite directions as you can see here. But I'm going to take this one and I'm going to start by going, I think, from the side because I have this folded over. So I'm going to go right about in the middle. You can put your flowers anywhere you want. I did about 8 flowers on each card. Usually I do odd numbers, but for the coloring technique I was doing, I wanted 8. So you can do as many as you can fit on here. But there's my first one. Now I'm going to do one kind of on the opposite side, so I'm actually going to open this back up and do one come in the other direction. Okay, now I'm going to take my other oriented flower, I'm going to go back to the side I started on to finish that up with the folded mat here. So again, I'm just folding back to the score line to cover up the back side of the card. And I'm going to stamp a couple more. I'm wanting to get as many of the flower buds. There's a big bud and a little bud on each stamp, and I'm wanting to get as many of those as possible because that's what I'm going to color. I'm just kind of alternating the way they face. Alright, so now I've got everything for the side along the back of the card. So now I can lay my mat back out flat. I'm just alternating between the 2 different direction flowers. Let's see. I always take a while to decide, but you could certainly just go for it. Just start putting them any which way. See how many I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, here's my 8th one. 8. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. Set my ink aside, closed, so I don't get that on anything. Now I'm going to use the watercolor pencils. So this is the pack we're giving everyone at our event. This is the original pack of watercolor pencils. It comes with 13. There's a quick look at the colors. Hopefully you can see that okay. And of course I'll list this in the product list below and link to it as well. They also sell a 10-pack of other colors. But the colors I'm going to use for this Daffodil Delight card are Daffodil Delight, and then to go along with my rainbow ombre theme, the colors just above and below that on the spectrum, so the Pumpkin Pie and the Bermuda Bay. Now, I know Bermuda Bay is maybe more blue than green. I'm trying to turn that so you can see the names. But the green in this set of watercolor pencils isn't kind of in this same bright color family, and so I wanted to keep it that. So I'm going to start with my Pumpkin Pie, and I'm going to start with the flowers at the bottom. Hold it the right way, at the bottom of my card, because I'm going to work from Pumpkin Pie to Daffodil Delight right here in the Daffodil Delight wash to the Bermuda Bay. So this part I will probably speed up in editing, so I'm going to try to keep quiet because I know that this will take me a while. I love to color and take my time. One thing I will say before I skip ahead though is you will see I'm not coloring the whole flower. So one great thing about these watercolor pencils, especially when you use them with the blender pen, is you don't need a lot of color. Plus I kind of like the look of it fading to no color to keep just some of that kind of artistic sketched look. So I'm just putting a little color at the bottom, fading up a little bit. You probably don't even have to worry about it that much. The blender pen will do that work for you. So just put a little color at the bottom if you like that look too. The other thing I'm going to do, and I'll show you this a little later maybe, is I am going to not only do 3 colors, but I'm going to create even more by blending them together. So create kind of a lighter orange by blending the Pumpkin Pie and the Daffodil Delight, and a lighter green by blending the Bermuda Bay and the Daffodil Delight. So I'll actually have like 5 different colors going on this thing, but it helps them blend together for that ombre look. All right, so now quiet so I can skip ahead for you. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to show you, I pushed pretty hard on the Daffodil Delight flowers because of course they're already over a Daffodil Delight wash. So to get any of that color to show up, I really wanted to push. Hopefully you can see that. And then it's pretty subtle, but this is the flower, this top big bloom here in the bottom center that I colored with the Daffodil Delight as well as the Pumpkin Pie, just to create that slightly different orange. Again, probably hard to see on the video. And of course, no one will probably even notice with the vellum, but I'll know. And sometimes it's okay to just do things to satisfy your own creativity. Like I said, I think coloring is fun, so I really enjoy this, and I don't mind taking my time and trying different things, even if it isn't really gonna matter too much in the end. It's therapeutic, right? That's why adult coloring has become such a trend, I think. Okay, so in trying to make sure my computer stayed awake during that tutorial, I accidentally paused my video and didn't realize it, so I apologize that you won't get to see me put this together. I will just explain what I did. I wish I could blame the cat. Man, he was a few seconds too late. I could have blamed him. Okay, so what I did once I was finished coloring with my watercolor pencils, which I think was the last thing you got to see, before I added all of this on top of my card, I used the blender pen, and I made sure to let you know, or I will make sure to let you know, if you're not using a brand new blender pen, definitely rub off the tip gently on your paper mat, your scrap paper, before you start. You can see these will stain, and that's okay, but what you want to make sure is that there's no color left in there that's going to come off on your project, because you wouldn't want to put purple and yellow, for instance. So I took this and just gently went over the areas that I had watercolored with my pencils, and that really turns the colored pencil effect into like a watercolor paint effect. You do it real gently. If we were using the watercolor paper, that's a little more durable. I assume these note cards are made out of like the basic Whisper White cardstock, which will work. You just want to be careful not to rub too hard and saturate it too much. But you can probably even use an aqua painter. Not for today's event, we've set you up with the blender pen, but you can use those with watercolor pencils too. Just make sure you're not using too much water unless it is the watercolor paper. Also wanted to let you know, if you're trying to leave some white like I did, then you might want to work from the white into the color with your blender pen instead of working from the color into the white, because then you can drag it up. I also was rubbing off on my mat frequently while I was doing this so that I wouldn't get this saturated with color and I could still leave those white sections that I like. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else. Let's see. So once you've used the blender pen on all the areas you watercolored, then you're ready to assemble. The last thing I'll say is by doing the effect I did where I blended, and I wish you could see it. You could see it before I put everything together. Maybe you can see a little bit there. So it showed up better with the Bermuda Bay and Daffodil Delight. That is a really different green, almost like a granny apple green, than the Bermuda Bay by itself. Hopefully you can see that still. So by blending one watercolor pencil on top of another, you really create even more colors. Because I think that granny apple green is in the second set. And of course then it would be true coordinated color with Stampin' Up. But you can stretch that first set that you got pretty well. There goes the cat again, done doing whatever mischief he was doing. So yes, so then I took my vellum and I first played with the placement. So before I used any adhesive, I lay that vellum on top of my card just to see where it was going to end up. And then I laid my bees on top to see where they were going to end up, because you're going to put your adhesive for the vellum underneath your bees. That way you won't see it, because this is of course like a frosted clear sheet, so you would see adhesive through it. So once I knew that this is where I wanted my bees to go facing one another, I was able to take everything off, put a little bit of my adhesive right where I wanted it. I kind of used my flowers to know like these bees were kind of ending up under those flower buds, so I put my adhesive there. And then really carefully I lay my vellum in place. You don't want to drag it around, because then of course you're going to move that glue around as well. And once you feel good about where it is, you can push down on the glue. Again, pretend these bees aren't there yet. Push down on the glued areas so that it's flat, and you'll be able to see it a little through the vellum. It'll be darker, but then you put your bees right on top and you're all set. So that is our final card, and I'll show you the rest of them because the video did come back on for the ending, so we'll cut back to that now. Some of you had the yellow one, so you got to make that version. Some of you had the pink one, so you got to make this version. And some of you had the purple one, so you got to make this version. So 3 different cards, and again, the note card set comes with all 3. Get 8 of each, 24 total. Super cute, if I do say so myself. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Those of you who are attending our event, thank you so much for attending and for your patience with any technical difficulties with this video or with our actual day of stream. I wish you all the best, and of course, happy crafting. Sorry if you can't see that, it's bright on my ends, it's kind of blown out, but there it is.